Hey, welcome to Tent Talk. This is a show all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager, a farmer, or a food producer selling at farmers markets, or just a curious farmers market shopper, this is the podcast for you. On today's episode of Tent Talk, our guest is Kelly Foss, director of the Downtown Farmers Market in Des Moines, Iowa. We are going to talk with Kelly about all that goes into managing a farmers market with over 300 vendors. Whew. Kelly also tells us about her new role at the Farmers Market Coalition and what they've got planned for the 2018 National Farmers Market Week coming up. I'm Bridget Myers, and I'm one of your hosts. I've spent years as an on-site farmers market manager, and I've done it all from pulling permits to social media marketing.
I'm your other host, Justine Marzoni-Mead, hot sauce maker, farmers market vendor, and event facilitator for the Intense Conference.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, director of San Diego Markets, still an active farmers market manager. I've hauled my share of barricades, and founder of Intense Business.
Today we're chatting with Kelly Foss from Des Moines, Iowa. Since 2000, Kelly's been the director of the Downtown Farmers Market in Des Moines, and it's a very impressive farmers market. It began in 1976 with just 15 vendors, and today the market supports nearly 300 vendors and an average of 25,000 visitors each Saturday during May through October. Kelly is also a new director on the Farmers Market Coalition Board and a member of the Iowa Farmers Market Association and Prairie Rivers of Iowa. Okay, welcome, Kelly. Thank you so much for taking time to join us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, of course. So we just wanted to start by asking you about your background, where you come from, how'd you end up managing the downtown Des Moines Farmers Market?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started this venture as the director of special events for a nonprofit organization for downtown Des Moines. And I was originally charged with managing and directing several large-scale events in downtown Des Moines, like the Des Moines Arts Festival. There was an event we did for sort of a holiday celebration called Fire in the Sky. We did a summer concert series. The list went on and on. So when they hired me, it was kind of like, here's all these really great events we're going to do. And then, here's this little farmers market thing we have on Saturdays. So it was kind of like the extra.
Yeah.
It was a little accidental bonus, right? And so
This little extra event that happens every week.
Every Saturday, yeah. So good luck with that. And by the way, we don't really know what we're doing with it, and it's your job to kind of figure it out. And so that's kind of how it started. I mean, I really have kind of a special events background in a sense. I've done special events for a while, did special events for Parks and Recreation, some summer concert series and big, larger scale event or concerts and things like that. But I also have a business background, and I think that really helps me hone in on helping the entrepreneurs that we work with on a daily basis in our farmers market, kind of helping them sort things out and help them with best practices and making decisions that are really tough sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of how I've grown in my professional world. Love food, love gardening, love cooking. I grew up in a family that we only gardened. My grandparents had basically an entire city lot dedicated to. They were sort of doing urban gardening before urban gardening was kind of the cool thing.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I literally didn't know you could buy tomatoes at the grocery store.
Oh,
Seriously.
that's so cool, though. I like that.
It's kind of the opposite of kids nowadays, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Totally opposite. Like they're like, what? It doesn't come in a can?
Yeah, yeah.
That's not how it starts.
Get back to that.
But so that was really a really great start for me as we're gardening and harvesting and always enjoying fresh food, and the preservation that my mother and grandparents would do really kind of helped me learn to eat locally all year round with fresh raspberries, tomatoes, whatever we could fit in a can. We had pears, we had green beans, everything. And I think that really helped me. At the time, I don't know that I appreciated it. Just what it was, right?
Yeah.
But now looking back, I'm like, wow, I have such an appreciation for all the work that went into it and all the passion that my family had to make sure we were eating healthy, sort of right before our eyes, and we didn't even know how great it was.
That's awesome. It sounds like you were born to be a farmer's market manager.
Even though you didn't know.
Possibly. I mean, sometimes I feel like, okay, I think people expect it to be, oh, I was a farmer, I have farmed, I've been on the farm, which I did have family that was on the farm and raised chickens and things like that. But I think it's sort of just the appreciation of food and the work that goes behind making sure we're eating locally. Sort of encompasses all of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, really being a supporter of local food it definitely helps, I'm sure. So can you tell us, so you've been managing the market since 2000, right?
I have.
Wow. So what was the market like when you first started? You said it was this little Saturday project. How did it end up becoming so big? Yeah.
It was kind of a headache for people in our very small nonprofit organization. Our goal was to highlight downtown and bring people downtown. It was a farmers market that was started by a group of volunteers, and within 5 years they were spent. I mean, they were exhausted, and it's hard. It's kind of like, what do you say, like managing crowling cats or
herding cats,
trying to keep everyone on the same page. When I started managing the market, it was, I don't even remember, maybe into its 15th year, something like that.
Oh, wow.
So it had been around for a while. It started in just kind of a small parking lot in a parking ramp / parking lot south of our downtown, with just a handful of vendors. And so by the time I took it over, it was 40 vendors spread out into what I learned later was 100 vendor booth spaces. So it was kind of like
a lot of gaps.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and then they were just like filling space with kind of the same vendors taking over an entire block type of thing. And
massive spread to film.
Yeah. And so it was the main block that we're on is Court Avenue. So it had moved into the street before I took it over, and also utilized an adjacent parking lot. So these about 40 vendors kind of, it looked like maybe 50 or 60, or sometimes on good days during the full produce season, they could spread out tables and tables and tables of food and produce. So it had legs. It just wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
It just, nobody really could figure out what the recipe was to kind of like grasp onto it and just sort of grow it, I guess. Yeah. And so, it was, it was around, and I think people appreciated it, especially the vendors. It was attracting some customers. We had, a couple thousand customers were coming to it and enjoying it, and our vendors were very appreciative of that. The thing that I, look back on now is there was really no consistency in figuring out who the vendors were, what the right mix of vendors and producers, and who was bringing what, and that type of thing was. There was really no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah.
And so, how long did it take you before you decided to develop that rhyme or reason? I mean, do you have?
Well,
you're still figuring it out.
Almost, 18 years into it, I'm still developing it, and I think that's kind of the gist of what we do on a daily basis is growing it consistently all the time. But I really, really focused on the recruitment. I went to farming related workshops, meetings, conferences, anywhere I knew that I could meet new farmers. They were either new to me or they were new in the business of farming, and maybe they were excited about growing new things, and sort of younger generation that was starting to farm. I was just doing anything I could do to meet new growers. And I think that was helpful. I also, with the vendors I had at that point, I really worked to kind of create what I call I sort of dubbed it my cohesive market community, which is not an easy undertaking, working with several entrepreneurs. I don't care if it's 5 or 55. Entrepreneurs are in business for themselves because they want to make their own rules. They're making the rules as they go and for themselves. And I really wanted to create something where we could look out for each other and we could be more neighborly. And I called it my cohesive market community. And I really, because there was such a competitive spirit and I love the competitiveness of it, but there wasn't this cohesiveness happening. Everybody was sort of like protecting their space and protecting their domain and that type of thing. And I think like sort of someone coming in from the outside really helped bring it all together type of thing. And there were some things that we implemented early on that vendors or, current growers and producers were not happy about, and literally just thought it was the end of the world. One little snippet of an example is we were set up we're in the street and we were trying to grow, and I looked at how the setup was happening, and there was no room to grow. And essentially our vendors' tables, their cars were parked against the curb, but their tables were on the sidewalk. We don't have that big of sidewalks. And so there was literally room for two people to walk side by side, maybe if they turn sideways. Right. So I just wanted our vendors to move their tables off the sidewalk and butt their tables up against the curb, which maybe is hard to visualize, but if you've been to farmers markets that are in streets, I mean, you just want customers to be able to have space to walk on the sidewalks. You would have thought that it was just the end of the world. And it took me 2 years of constant meetings and helping vendors to sort of see outside their current ways. And it took me 2 years. And the very first day we accomplished it, I was getting hugs and thank yous and kisses.
Of course.
And what the heck? The sales went up when we did it right.
Right, and I'm not kidding you, Kat. Our vendors were saying their sales increased 40%.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So you can imagine that was happy vendors. I mean, who doesn't want to increase their sales? Mm-hmm. And the customers were, because they could actually get to the vendors without sort of like fighting everybody else.
Sure.
Or, kind of butting their way in there. But that was just one, example of something that seemed so enormous. And that very first day, there were vendors, I can see it now, the vendor who asked me, how did you know?
It's magic.
This is the one vendor that was just really, really, really resistant. I mean, another really pleased. It was really resistant. And just grabbed me and hugged me and said, how did you know? And it was really hard to answer that question, but sometimes looking from the outside, you can just see how that little adjustment can make a huge difference.
It is always really exciting when you get one of those vendors that resists and resists and resists everything you suggested, and they decide to try it and it actually works. It's so fun when you get somebody to turn around and go, oh yeah, you were right. This works great. I'm selling more stuff. Mm-hmm. Who do you have in addition to farmers there? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just say that was pretty early on. So then that, even though I was young and trying to manage all these people who were, 15, 25 years older than me, I think that grew their confidence that, okay, maybe she might have something going on.
Right,
she might be able to help us. So I apologize. What was your next question?
Well, I was wondering, what kind of vendors do you have in addition to farmers?
Oh, yeah. So we have quite a variety now. We have everything from, we have flower vendors, so fresh cut flowers or plants that you can plant. We have several art and craft vendors. Of course, produce, everything under the sun, basically, that grows in Iowa. We have a lot of vineyards or wineries across the state of Iowa. So we have a handful of wine vendors that participate, sell their locally made wine.
Lovely.
Meat vendors who are raising local meats and eggs, and so some dairy vendors who are selling cheese. A lot of baked goods, health and beauty items.
So do you have a producer-only kind of criteria, or can people resell there?
So that's a really tough question to answer. So we do, as of 18 years ago, when that was another thing that when you asked, what do we do to grow the market, we implemented some rules and regulations and really kind of decided who we are and who we want to be. And at that time, there wasn't a whole lot of rhyme or reason to who was getting in and not, that kind of thing. It was like if we could fill a spot, we just threw them in there. Yeah. So we do have a few resale vendors that kind of helped grow the market from the beginning.
Right.
And so, a little salute to them. We do have not even a handful anymore, but 4 maybe something vendors who are doing a little bit of that, and maybe 1 flower vendor yet that's still participating in that way. But as of now, as of the last 18 years, we really are looking for producers who they own a farm or they're renting land, they're raising, they're raising local meat, eggs, making their own cheese. We have several people who are raising goats, making goat cheese with their goat's milk, and so really farm to table type of producing happening. So really, that is our focus and that is our future, with a nod to the folks who helped us start our market.
Yeah, we have a similar thing with our largest and oldest market here. We still have a handful of resellers, that, like an imported clothing vendor and that kind of thing, that were there that first month. But as those kind of folks have retired or moved away or left by whatever attrition, we did develop a firm policy years ago that we're looking really for things that are made in San Diego and sold by the maker. So same thing, and we've kind of tightened it up as we went along. So do you have 300 spaces or 300 vendors?
We have 300 vendors on our roster.
Wow.
Yeah, 300 vendors.
We do almost 200 at the Mercado, and we thought we were huge. But that's 300. Well, that's crazy. How many of them are on site on a given day?
Yeah, and that's where I was headed with that. Is there's probably about 250 to 260 there on any given Saturday.
Wow. Still a lot.
And
still a lot.
And it is.
Still
it's still a lot. So we've restricted how much space they can utilize, and that was really because, as a vendor leaves, we want to make sure we can go out and seek a really high quality product, or new vendors who are, growing something new, instead of leasing it to the neighbor vendor who thinks it'd be great to have an extra stall.
Yeah.
And so those are kinds of things we put in place. But we have, as part of our 300 vendors, we have full season vendors who are there every single Saturday of the market. Then we have the occasional vendors who fill in when our producers aren't. Maybe they've had a crop failure, maybe their product isn't in season yet. So we can rotate in the bakers and the artists and the prepared food vendors as kind of special or extra type of bonus spots type of thing. So it's a constant. No Saturday is ever the same, as in who's attending.
Are you open all year, or are you seasonal market there?
We're seasonal. Gets pretty cold in the winter months in Iowa.
Yeah.
So we go May through first Saturday of May through the last Saturday of October, and then I do have also a couple winter farmers markets where we take it indoors, and that's more like 100 farmers and producers that participate for our few winter markets that we have in November and December.
So those aren't every week though, right? We've seen a lot of, I'm out at Pepper Place has now got in Birmingham used to close in the winter, and now they've got an indoor space. The folks at Uptown Market in Phoenix used to close in the summer because it was too hot, and now they have an indoor space where they do run a market every week, but it's much smaller than their outdoor market that happens during their better season. So you're just doing the winter market intermittently on the inside?
Yes. The space that we use is essentially an office building in downtown Des Moines that happens to have a very large atrium area. And so there's a lot of setup and tear down to make it happen. And I think if it was a space utilized just for farmers market, it would possibly be easier to do it, on a more regular basis.
Sure.
Yeah.
But our farmers are like, they're already driving quite a ways to get to downtown Des Moines. So the setup and tear down just can be a little painful.
Yeah, when they have to move in, get away from their trucks, and I'm sure that's harder.
Definitely appreciated to continue it during the winter months. We're just trying to figure out a better recipe to make that happen.
Yeah. So with 250, 260 vendors on site on a Saturday, how many employees, or do you use paid employees? Do you use volunteers? How many folks do you have helping you manage that big group?
Yeah, it's quite a large space. We have I have 2 full-time people that work in the office with me, well, myself and one other person, and then a couple of interns that are in the office. So we're doing all the admin and coordinating and planning. And then on site, I have 6 seasonal people who basically just work on Saturdays during the market. And they do kind of the general things on site, including information booth and setup and tear down and things like that. I also have 2 police officers that we pay to be on site, and they roam the area throughout the time of the market. Then I have this little crew that I pay. They're not my staff, but contract workers that I have 5 people who do cleaning, and they clean out trash cans. They sweep the streets. Their job is to keep the market clean, safe, and beautiful. They're kind of our eyes and ears. We call them. It's a organization that's kind of part of our downtown organization called Operation Downtown.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yes, and so they have a crew that is dedicated just to the market on Saturday mornings, and we could not do it without them.
Yeah, we have a similar thing in Little Italy. They have a maintenance association there with employees that all week are power washing sidewalks and emptying garbage cans and things, but there's a crew of them that are assigned to us on Saturdays. Boy, that's a lifesaver, isn't it? Because we've got weekday markets where we don't have those guys, and we have to set all our own barricades and empty all our own trash, and it makes us really, really appreciate the maintenance guys in Little Italy, I'll say.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of appreciation happening for that group.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we could talk about the farmers market for hours and hours, but there's also something else that you do that's really important that we want to talk about. So can you tell us about your role at the Farmers Market Coalition and like how that got started and what you're doing there?
Actually Kelly and I fought a hard race for the board of directors election last time, and I'm not bitter at all that she won and I didn't. So it's cool.
Is this your concession call?
Is this your concession speech?
Yeah, this is my concession call.
Oh, Kat, no. Well, maybe next time, because definitely need experienced people and board members from across the country to, help support farmers markets across the country and work with the Farmers Market Coalition. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of a recent thing. I was just elected to the board this year, and apparently I beat Kat, which I didn't realize.
It's all right. California will rise again.
That's right. Of course. But, the coalition is really dedicated to strengthening farmers markets across the United States, and really helping build up and elevate markets to help people provide income opportunities for farmers. That's really the main thing. The mission is something like to strengthen farmers markets for the benefit of farmers, consumers, and communities. And I think, communities is a huge part of that. We always want to make sure we're supporting our farmers and helping them find income and sustainability. But I think farmers markets are, really building communities. And so that's a big part of what the coalition does. And that's about, a big part of what I help support being part of the Farmers Market Coalition. But this year, this is my first year working with the board. And so I get to call in and have our board meeting. They do some really great supportive work to focus on policy and issues to elevate farmers markets. So we did a sort of a team meeting in Washington, D.C., where many of the board members were able to go advocate farmers markets on the Hill. So speak with legislators who are writing policy to help elevate and protect and help us grow farmers markets. So that's a really big piece of it. I know there's a conference coming up this fall, and really excited about the conference that this will be the first time the Farmers Market Coalition has coordinated a conference. And so that's in the fall. And so that's something I'll be working on quite a bit and going to as well. So
yeah, I think it's so. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's been a learning curve, and I'm so passionate about farmers markets that to put my energies towards things that are helping on a national level has been. Yeah. This has been really great.
Yeah, it's so important too, I think, to work on the policy stuff the way you do, because as farmers market managers, and then especially farmers and even food makers and the community groups, we're so busy, and we're such a small scale compared to when you get a big group like the coalition that can really speak for more than just a small group, and you guys have the time and maybe more resources and organized to go make those movements for us that we all want to do that are important for our individual markets or individual farmers in our county here, that you can really implement that kind of contact with, people that can make those changes on a national level.
Well, the grocery industry has an enormous lobbying organization that is in Washington all the time pushing for some advantages that we don't have at farmers markets. So Farmers Market Coalition and their policy team is so, so important to helping us hold our ground and not have somebody else subsidized at the expense of farmers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I had no idea that it was at this level of work that we're doing, but we've had so many comments and comments of gratitude from other, from farmers market managers and farmers who are saying just what you said, that we don't have time to advocate for ourselves, so thank you. And sometimes when in the world of rules and policies, things can sort of slip under the radar, and you don't even know it till all of a sudden it's in law now, and wait, how did that happen? So that's what the Farmers Market Coalition is really paying attention to, policy and the fine print that can sort of slip through the radar. And I'm just really impressed and really, really happy to be part of this organization.
Yeah, it's so great to have someone else's eyes on it for the rest of us. So that's such a great part of what you guys do. And then something that we love at our markets is always National Farmers Market Week. It's always so fun, and we do fun activities there. But can you tell us more about what is the aim of the Coalition's National Farmers Market Week, and what's anything special that you've planned for this year? And is this your first Farmers Market Week in your role there, or did you do it last year?
Yes. Well, this is the first time I've been part of Farmers Market Coalition, during the National Farmers Market Week. But as a farmers market director, I have for several years been part of the celebration and made sure that we're doing extra promotions and PR and media to make sure that we're always inviting new people to our market throughout the entire season, but really do a big push for National Farmers Market Week.
Yeah, that's good. Just to get everyone awareness around it. I know it's fun at our markets. We give out the little temporary tattoos, and we have scavenger hunts for the kids. And some people, just consumers, or even small farmers and vendors, are oh, there's a whole week just for us. This is so special, and it just helps kind of bring everyone together to celebrate it.
Well, and FMC is really good about supporting that event with press releases that you can use if you don't have time to create your own press release, or messaging that you can use in your social media, and infographics, and
that whole kit. That
terrific stuff for market managers that don't have a big marketing side or marketing team. That just makes it so much easier.
Do it for us.
Yeah,
right.
So all that can be found on the Farmers Market Coalition website. There's actually a Farmers Market Coalition media kit that's specifically for National Farmers Market Week. So there's going to be talking points. So you can, as you're talking to the media, you can talk about the importance of farmers markets and use some statistics. So that's a really great resource. There's some farmers market trivia that you can help engage visitors, as you were mentioning, give some excitement at the market. There's press release templates and even a proclamation template, social media cheat sheet. Sometimes it's, we're so busy, we want to do social media, but not really sure what to say. So the Farmers Market Coalition has a little social media cheat sheet, so you can just kind of use what they've said and plug it into your farmers market. It's a really great resource.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, well, I love that. And then how do you find that you have time for both running your market and doing and how do you marry those two? Who else is on the board with you? Is it market managers? Is it farmers? What is that group made of?
It's that's a really great mix. I haven't met them all personally. It's kind of bizarre in a way, but we're all over the country, so we haven't got to meet everyone yet. But for the most part, it's farmers market managers, but also some very passionate advocates that really want to elevate farmers markets and make sure they're always being looked after. But I would say for the most part, market managers or working with farmers markets in some capacity.
Yeah, a lot of statisticians. There's some people that are really heavy into gathering data and developing metrics and that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
They're very wonky over there in some little piece of that board. They've got their hands on all those numbers and managing them and putting out stat analysis and things from those that you wouldn't find somewhere else. Nobody else has time to really process all that.
Yeah, we really need that though. It's really vital. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Kelly, so it's time for our question of the week. This is my favorite part. So we always have a little question at the end of our podcast. So we get to ask our guests and our co-hosts. So today's question is, what is something you think that all farmers market managers should know? So we'll give you a second to think about that. But Bridget, do you have an answer to this week's question?
Yes. Well, yeah, as a fellow market manager, so I know that there's a lot of different things. And when people ask me about my job and I'm answering questions and people say, oh, that tells me, you've been to this kind of market or this kind of market. But I really wish that all farmers market managers would try really hard to not lose the focus on the purpose of their market, because I know as a manager, sometimes if a market's struggling or if it's just something's not working, it's really easy just to take every single application that comes in and say, okay, I really need to fill this market, fine, I'll be relaxed on my criteria policy about this thing and start letting in, we don't do like deep frying, we don't do resale, but then if we have a market that needs a little help, it's easy for me to see how market managers would kind of slip those kind of vendors in just to fill the market, and we work really hard not to do that, and we just try every other avenue. So I really wish every farmers market manager would really stick to that, because you can go to one market and it's technically a farmer's market, but it feels like a swap meet, and if that's the only market that someone's ever been to, they can say, oh yeah, I've been to a farmer's market, like it's so blingy, I don't need like trading cards and flip-flops, like it's so frustrating as someone who's in the industry, like no, that's not what they're supposed to be. Like, can we all focus on farms and like the farmer's market part of it, which is like what you said with like farmers, consumers, community? Can we all just get on board with that and like make all of our markets like that? So I really wish, I think that all farmers market managers should really hold on to that focus of the purpose of their market and not turn it into a carnival or garage sale. So, Kat, Kat, what is your?
I think that's a good one. That's one that I preach about. Farmers markets are about farmers. I think it's important for market managers to remember what other people, vendors, consumers don't know. And so be really clear in our messaging and our expectations. If you've got a lot of rules for your vendors and you know that they all add up to a more successful market for everybody, I don't think anybody resents that, as long as you're really good at communicating those expectations and you're really consistent about enforcing them, so everybody feels like they're getting a fair shake.
Yeah, makes sense too.
Well, the thing that I wish that all market managers know is similar kind of to Bridget's, but also not just in curating the vendors that are in your markets, but the way that you organize the vendors that you have in your market. For example, one time in a market we were in, I'm selling like vegan hot sauce. And we were next to this vendor that was deep frying French fries, and it just like, say what you will about having fried foods in your farmer's market, but it was really hard for us to sell, because the types of people that were there to, eat French fries were not necessarily the same type of people that were going to buy our product, and we just had a really hard time selling there. But then we were put, next to somebody who was selling olive oil, and that worked much better, because it was that type of customer was seeking out our product. So I think that that's one thing, not just thinking who you're going to have in your markets, but also how you're going to arrange those vendors, put vendors that are going to highlight each other next to each other. And I think that really helps sales.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, arrange it. Kelly, what do you think? What is your?
Well, I love all that. So have a well-balanced, functioning market, I guess. So I think number one, I have two things. Number one, know who you are and who you want to be as in your market. So I guess our market is always evolving, and not by accident. We're always working very strategically and kind of sometimes methodically and very slowly, but we're making incremental adjustments and always trying to stay current and relevant with our community. We're not forcing it. We're making it really complement our community. So I'd say, know who you are and who you want to be, so you don't sort of slip in vendors that don't fit, but also be okay with change, be open to new ideas. And lastly, I would say it's a marathon and not a sprint, and be okay with making small incremental adjustments.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to speak with us. We're really excited to share your story with our listeners, and we're excited for National Farmers Market Week coming up. And by the time this episode airs, it will be the following week.
Right. It'll be we'll be right on top of it, and we hope to see you back here in February. when it's snowy in Des Moines and lovely here in San Diego at the Intense Conference.
I hope to be there. I hope to be there for sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a really great time learning more about your markets as well.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right, have a great day, and we'll see you in February.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening today. Please leave us a review on iTunes and tell us how you liked today's episode. And also be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our next episode. Don't forget, National Farmers Market Week is coming up August 5th through the 11th, 2018. You can find more information about that at farmersmarketcoalition.org, and don't forget to get your media kit for your farmers market. If you want more farmers market tips, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at intensebusiness.com and follow us on Instagram at intensebusiness. The 2019 Intense Conference will be held in San Diego, February 24th through the 26th. We can't wait. We really hope you'll join us. Please find more information about the conference on our website.
This podcast is produced by Intense Business, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Special thanks to our guest Kelly Foss and San Diego Markets.